Hello YouTubers and YouTubies, North Coast T here. Today we're working on a 2016 Chevy Cruze. More specifically, thermostat. Thermostat housing, and the temperature sensor are all in one unit on this. And on here, it's located underneath your air tube, kind of right down in there. Tools needed for this job are a pair of pliers or channel locks, flat blade screwdriver, 8mm socket, extension, and a ratchet. The proper socket is an E10. And if you're going to do a lot of work on the Chevy Cruze, you're going to want to buy the E10. I would buy it in the 1/4-inch drive. This shoulder on here was too fat to get in there to get to the one bolt head. So, but this is the proper socket E10, but 8mm works, 5/16 works, whatever you got handy. You're not torquing these down a lot. They're going into plastic, and then, well, through plastic into aluminum, so you don't want to over torque it. You need a drain pan, and then here's your part number from Duralast. Make sure you take the old part with you. Like I said, you want to make sure you get the right thing. I want to start by taking off your air tube here. You got one clamp here. You got one in the center here and then one up here, but I'll probably just take off the ends and see if I can get that off. So that's where we're going to start at. All right, with that air tube out of the way, you can really get your peepers on there. It's right here. So, forgive me, it's really cold. So I got these giant bulky gloves on. So your sensor is located right on top. So you want to get that unplugged. We'll have to disconnect some of these hoses. And they actually just have that ring around it that you pull out on. And just to release it, and then it'll come right off. So we'll get some of that antifreeze drained out of there. And then move on to removing hoses. All right, with your coolant drained, connector disconnected, hose disconnected, and that hose is pretty simple. It's just like I said, got this metal ring that you lift up on, like that, and then that ring locks in there, and then you just gotta really pull it off. And then you got 3 bolts here, one under here, almost all the way on the other side, and then one right there. The second one is below that, like straight down. So you might be able to get a little more room if you need by taking this stuff off. I've done this before without taking any of that off. You do have another hose connected to this coming straight down that way, and I found it's easier to unbolt it, move it aside, then take the hose off. So I'm going to go for unbolting it next. Alright, once you pull the 3 bolts out, you pull this forward. Now it's easier to manipulate this so you can get your pliers on that clamp there, which is hidden really well until you pull this down. So that's genuinely what I like to do, is pull it down and then take that off. So this is your sensor, thermostat, and the housing is all one piece. And then make sure you get your gasket off there too. It's best to replace it. I think the new one comes with it, but if not, we'll ask for one and get that too. These are technically a Torx head bolt that hold those on, but if you don't have a Torx socket, just a regular 8mm will work. Just use a regular 8. You're only going into plastic basically, so they're not going to be really tight anyway. But here's what it looks like off. So you had your sensor. This is facing the front. You had your big hose, radiator hose here, sensor, and then another hose here that was just on with a clamp. But like I said, it's easier if you just pull out this bottom bolt, the top one here, this one over here, and then once you pull this out, you can manipulate it down and pull the clamp off of there. So there you go. A lot of times these will crack on you. Looks like there's some sort of damage right there. They'll either crack because they're plastic, or the sensor goes bad, or your thermostat goes bad, but it's all in one. It's like $81 at AutoZone. But there you go. That's off the car. I'll show you what it looks like over here. You're kind of in a tight space, but it is definitely doable. The only thing I removed was the air intake hose, and your one little tiny connector there. And here's that hose here. Once I pulled it downward, I could get a pair of pliers on it, channel locks, and loosen it up. And now we go get the new one. Now, if you were to find this hose here in your way as well, you see those little ridges right there? There's one on the other side too. You're supposed to squeeze it, and then it'll flex open. It's really hard, and then it comes off. I tend not to take anything more than I have to off because of the plastic. Everything is plastic, so it gets brittle and breaks. So I just work around it. It's not really in the way because you can kind of just get right in behind it and around it to bolt it on. So I just leave it intact. If it is in your way though and you feel brave, you just squeeze it on either side. It kind of flexes in and then pops off. So it's probably not a bad idea to toss a rag or something down in there just so you don't drop anything in there. I wasn't working with anything over there, so I didn't, but just in case. And there you have it, it's off. Now make sure when you go to the parts store, one thing I found out, you take the old part with you, because this is the new part. It's a thermostat housing. For some reason, in their system, well, at least AutoZone, they call this a thermostat housing as well, which is completely opposite side of the motor, has nothing to do with the thermostat, and is all your little coolant tubes, and that thing is plastic as well, and will break on you. This one's been replaced twice, so just so you see, completely opposite, but they call it similar. They call it the thermostat housing tube or something, and the people running the register don't know the difference. So as you go to fill the system, there's, let's see if we can get you a view of it, that little screw head right there. What is this thing focusing on? That's your vent. You want to open that just a little bit counterclockwise with a Phillips. As you fill the system, the air will come out there, and then kind of helps you burp the system, get all the air out of it. And these here just pop on, these little push rings. Just leave it down and then it'll snap on into place. And then it's really the only way to burp the system. Now if you wanted to drain the whole entire system, I don't usually drain the radiator. This car's had the fluid changed many times because of all the parts that keep breaking. But if you wanted to drain it, you can use a Torx. Go right underneath here on the passenger side. There's one little pointed flap with a Torx screw in it. I think it's T15 or T10. You take that out and you can just peel that down and you'll see the drain for the radiator. And you can drain it there. you could put a hose on it and direct it somewhere because it'll just go all underneath the car. But I find no sense draining the radiator when you got new fluid in it, newer fluid, and a lot of your fluid is going to come out right there when you take off the thermostat. So I just put a drain pan underneath and catch it. But it's really up to you, whatever you want to do. Another note, like I said, I think I mentioned it before, but this I put the new thermostat in this hose here, slide it in, then move the clamp into place with a pair of channel locks, then put it back up. I find it too hard to try to come in the front and try to disconnect that hose with the thermostat attached. Said you could do it either way you want, but that's the way I found to be the easiest, is to slide it into the hose first and put the clamp on it, then reattach it to the car. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I hope you have a great day.